Hello guys, welcome to a new video. In today's video, we're gonna discuss about Nikon D3000 camera, whether this camera is still relevant in 2022 or not, if you can still get great images with this camera, or is this camera really very outdated. If you are new to my channel, consider subscribing it and pressing the notification icon. You can also check out other videos on my channel. So guys, this camera was launched in 2009. So this is almost 13-year-old camera, and this has a 10 megapixel CCD sensor. So this doesn't have a CMOS sensor, it has a CCD sensor. Usually the CCD sensors are known for its vibrant and rich colors, but they are also not so good when it comes to low lighting situation. And this camera is not that good for low light because the ISO range on this camera is only from 100 to 1600, and it struggles a lot when it comes to low light. So I would advise, if you want to use this camera, use it maybe in the daytime when you have ample amount of light, or if you want to use it in the night time, then maybe you should use a speed light or flash gun, or you can add some extra lights. But definitely you can use this camera in a studio or in day lighting situation. If you are using some 50mm prime lens, then you can get even better photos because those lenses will allow you to get more light. You can shoot at lower ISO and faster shutter speed, and you can get really nice good background blur with those lenses. If I talk about the other features on this camera doesn't have much features. The dynamic range is also not that good on this camera. It has 11 EV dynamic range, so it is not the best camera when it comes to landscape photography. Also, the frame per second on this camera is only 3, so it is not so good for sports and wildlife photography. It is best suited only for like portrait and studio work or some casual photography. If I talk about the weight of the camera, it's around 550 grams, so it is not very light but not very heavy either. So it is pretty good and it feels good in your hands. This camera have 11 autofocus point, and in good lighting situation the autofocus works good, but it struggles a lot when it comes to low light. One thing to note about this camera is that this camera can shoot only and only photos of 10 megapixel. So if you want a camera that can also do video, so this is not the camera you should buy. You should maybe then look for something as D3200, D3100 or D3300, because those camera can also do full HD video, but this is a camera only and only for photography. Now I'm gonna show you how this camera looks from close-up. So this is how the camera looks from the back. It has a 3-inch LCD screen and it is a fixed screen and it is not a touch screen. This camera do not have any Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. So whatever image transfer you need to do, you have to actually pop on your SD card and put it on your laptop. And you can see the build quality is pretty good. It is a standard Nikon setup. On the top it looks like this. So you have a familiar Nikon dial. So this is the on off switch, and also the shutter button is over here, and this is the horseshoe mount, and the flash opens from here. From the front the camera looks like this. The grip is pretty nice actually. From the side it looks like this. On this side you have connectivity option in case you want to connect this camera to your computer via USB. And from the bottom it looks like this, and the battery goes over here. Overall the build quality is pretty good. It feels good in your hands. Now I'm gonna put onto the screen some of the sample photos that I've taken with this camera, and for those photos I used this 18-105 kit lens, and most of the photos were taken in low lighting situation in the evening time when it was really cloudy. Even though it was not such great lighting situation, but still I was able to get some really nice photos. But I would say when there were like a lot of contrast in the lighting situation, for example if you had really bright areas and dark areas, then this camera was struggling a lot because the dynamic range is not that good on this camera. But if you have like flat lighting situation, there is not much contrast, then you can get really good photos even with this camera. If you use 50mm lens, then you can get some really nice portraits, nice colors with this camera. So when it comes to photography, I would give this camera 6 marks out of 10. I'm gonna deduct some marks because of the low dynamic range and the low ISO performance of this camera, and also this camera lacks a live view. So if you have a live view, it becomes really easy if you want to use old manual focus lenses with this camera. But this camera do not have any live view. If you want to take a photo, you have to hold your camera close to your eyes to frame it. But sometimes there are certain situations when you want to, do like overhead photo or like below the ground photo. So for that kind of situation, if you have a live view, then you can see the image in the live view and then frame it and then use the shutter to take the photo. But this camera do not have it. But Canon 1000D have it, even though that camera can only do photos. So that is one thing missing in this camera, I would say. Also with live view, you can focus your old manual focus lenses slightly more precisely. So because of all those drawbacks, I would give this camera only 6 marks out of 10. Now the final question, for how much price should you get this camera? So I would say you can get this camera used for around $100 or even less, along with the kit lens, which is such a cheap price for a DSLR. Should you still get this camera? I would say if you are really very tight on budget and if you need a DSLR just to learn the basics of photography and you are not interested in video, you are only interested in photos, then definitely you can go for this camera, because you can get this camera for $80 to $100 very easily, because this is an old camera. It is very easy to find, and if you use a 50mm lens with this camera, you can get some really nice images. After looking at those images, nobody would be able to say that these photos have been taken with a 13-year-old camera. So now it's up to you whether you want this camera or not. So if I talk about the relevancy of this camera, is this camera still relevant? I would say it is not the best camera to buy in 2022 or 2023, but with this camera still you have access to Nikon f-mount lenses. So if you are really tight on budget, you want to try different lenses, you want to learn the basics of photography, only then you should go for this camera. Otherwise, there are better cameras available in the market with better specifications that you can easily find even in the second-hand market. Alright guys, I hope you liked the video. If you liked it, please like it and share it, and please subscribe to the channel and don't forget to press the notification icon. I will see you in a new video.